here desperate for help. He killed himself waiting for a tribunal after a year of benefit cuts, which the assessors now accept he should have received. He had more than 700 pages of medical evidence.
This is my first Christmas and my family's first Christmas without my dad. And the reason why we're having Christmas without him is because he was sanctioned to death by the DWP.
Colin Traynor was just a baby when he had his first seizure. He was 5 when they finally diagnosed epilepsy. Fitting sometimes several times a day, by the time he left school, he'd accepted a life that was severely limited.
He had to accept he'd never work. He really did want to work.
He did want to work, my son.
He was restricted in such a lot of things.
November last year, Colin was called for one of the government's work capability assessments to establish whether he was still entitled to extra benefit because of his condition. The assessment, carried out by the IT company Atos for the Department for Work and Pensions, deemed him fit to work. A month later, he received this letter telling him his benefit would be cut by £70 a week.
He kept saying, what am I going to do? I've got bills to pay. I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. And I says to him, Colin, don't get excited. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. I said, we can appeal.
And the family did appeal. But as the months passed and they heard nothing, Colin's health deteriorated. His parents said he became incredibly anxious and withdrawn and began to lose weight. One morning in April, when he hadn't appeared for a doctor's appointment, Ray let himself into his son's house.
I opened the door and his alarm wasn't on, and obviously his door was barred, so I knew he was in somewhere. So I'm shouting to him.
Come on. He was shouting him. And when he went in the bedroom, he was on the floor at the side of the bed. And I went in and I tried to revive him. But I couldn't. And
He was dead. There's nothing I could do then.
Medical assessments, they don't always see a doctor or even someone who is clinically trained. They may see someone who is administratively trained, and these people are not going to pick up the subtleties of mental illness, and even the doctors are constrained by the forms they have to follow.
In the case that I put before Parliament, the man had got elastic bandages on his legs. They never even looked at them. They merely asked him whether he could walk across the room, whether he could pick up a pencil, and simple sedentary things like that. And the net result was that they claimed that he was fit for work. The man, of course, had a big lump on his neck, which undoubtedly was part of the cancer that finally killed him. They told him that the appeal could not take place under 11 months. And that's because a large number of people are naturally appealing against these outrageous decisions. And so he waited and waited, and of course the cancer got worse, and it took his hearing and it took his sight, and then it finally took his life before the appeal was even sent to him.
But even critics of the policy might say, well, that's an anomaly.
No. I had more than 150 emails, and nearly every one was from someone who had received similar kind of treatment.
There are many stories like Daniel Blake's and many people in his situation. I mean, just a few days ago, there was a story of a man who was declared fit for work and collapsed in the pavement outside shortly afterwards and died.
Is there a sense of frustration for you when you hear the stories that we featured, that people are still suffering?
I would say to those people who are been conned by the right-wing press, the Trump-like press, and by the vicious TV programs, most of them, you're one step away from being Daniel Blake. You're one pay packet away and you'll be in trouble. So think carefully on which side you're on.
Mr. Speaker, could I recommend the Prime Minister supports British cinema and takes herself along to a cinema to see a Palme d'Or winning film, I, Daniel Blake. And while she's doing so, perhaps she could take the Work and Pensions Secretary with her, because he described the film as monstrously unfair and then went on to admit that he'd never seen it. So he's obviously got a very fair sense of judgment on this. But I'll tell the Prime Minister what's monstrously unfair. Ex-servicemen like David Clapson dying without food in his home due to the government's sanctions regime. It is time that we ended this institutionalised barbarity against often very vulnerable people.